Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Flip podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're going to be jumping through a story talking about the upcoming elections and how they could affect the midterms. So off-year elections, seen as a bellwether. You've been here before. We've all been here before, and I love when they come back and say, oh, these elections could be determinative. They could tell us what's happening in the future. They very well could. You don't need to make it so dramatic. We all know, if we've been around politics for a while, what is going on with the midterms and how these will shed some light. These upcoming elections will provide some insight as to where the American people are. And we'll read an article today from ABC. With that, we have to jump into our daily debate, which is, who do you think? But there's a statistic in this podcast that we're going to read from ABC, but I want to know what you think before we get there. Who does the American people think is more out of touch? Democrats or Republicans? Throw it down in the comment section. Don't cheat. We'll get to it. We'll read out the statistics, but I want to hear what the people have to think before we get there. So with that, we jump into the article from ABC News. Quote, 1 year out from Election Day, Tuesday's results could reshape 2026 in the midterms. So I had the blessing of being a part of both off-year elections as they were happening and being in this podcast space. So we had done the Virginia one back in, I believe it was 2021, if I'm not mistaken. No, it would have been 2021. And we were involved. We were reading out some of the stuff back then. Then we obviously moved to Kentucky, and we did a off-year election in 2023 in Kentucky, and now we're back in Virginia for the 2025 off-year. So I've been in a lot of states that do a lot of off-year elections, and it's a fascinating way that these political parties look towards these results and try to glean some magical information from it. And that's not to say there's nothing that you can walk away from on these issues, but I think right now the message is pretty set for Democrats, which is Donald Trump said he was going to make your life easier. He said he was going to make your life cheaper. And now you've had a president who brings in a lot of money with tariffs, and yet you don't see the benefits as a citizen because you're paying higher prices for certain things. The economy hasn't recovered to the same degree that he had promised, and blah, 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 blah. They could make a healthcare addendum in certain places. In Virginia, they could probably make a federal work addendum saying, do you trust the government to not be shut down and leave your family without work for months upon months? In Northern Virginia, that would be extremely, extremely effective, given the percentage of people that actually work for the government or government-adjacent programs up here. So to pretend as though this is a necessary strategical game that they have to play here, that they have to really glean what the people are thinking about from these various elections, is wrong-headed. It's not to say that they're not important bellwethers, but to pretend as though this is the strategical masterpiece and masterclass and it'll give them all the right talking points moving into the election is wrong, mainly because Virginia and New Jersey, the two major ones that are dealing with governor issues right now, or governor elections right now, they are very unique populaces. They're blue state populaces, and to pretend the Democrats could walk away from this with a really special insight as to what riles up their voters is wrong, and to pretend as though Republicans would walk away and say, oh, well, hey, these certain types of issues didn't work here. If you take the gender ideology, the woke talking points from Republicans here, and you take it to Arkansas, I'm pretty sure that's still going to have a little bit of play. Not as much play as worrying about the kitchen table issues, but as we're going to get to here from ABC News, most people think that most, if not both, political parties are really, really out of touch with what the American people need. So you're going to have to find other ways to have proxies for those issues when it comes to the political fight over caring about people, because I don't think either party is willing to do what American people want them to do, and either party is not willing to at least step back and say, we're not going to do anything, which is a semi-solution, which some people may be willing to hear, because at least the government's not getting involved in your life, and you know that they're not the one trying to actively screw it up for you. That's my opinion on the latter half, but the first half is most definitely true, and that's because we have statistics from ABC. Quote, more than 6 in 10 Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy, management of the federal government, and tariffs, and 64% said he's going too far in trying to expand presidential power. So that seems like a pretty hearty percentage. That's obviously leeching into some Republicans there. Quote, at the same time, 68% of Americans say the Democratic Party is out of touch with concerns of most people in the United States, compared to 63% who feel the same way about Trump, and 61% who say the Republican Party is out of touch. So they're all pretty bundled there, but everybody's above 60, no one's above 70, and the American people are saying, whoa, we hired you, Donald Trump, as the outsider. We put you in there. Once again, the first time we saw that you were an outsider, and you kind of got used to it by the end, but you claim you're an outsider. You claim you're going to care about us, and then you get in there and you start doing things that seem anathema to the point that we are actually trying to get at. Make our lives easier, make our lives cheaper, make sure that our kids can raise good families, make sure that they can have better lives than we did, make sure that I can even get them to the point where they can have families, make sure they don't die of fentanyl overdoses because of a huge despair crisis going on within the United States. All these things are, in my opinion, connected. The reason that the fentanyl crisis is so terrible is not just the fact that there's fentanyl in this country. It's the fact that people feel so much despair that they turn to coping mechanisms that are inherently dangerous, that will increase the likelihood that they are going to overdose and leave this earth too early. That is what is underlying those sort of issues, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Some people just have a vehement opposition to drugs in general because they've seen them strip their family of life, of opportunity, of motivation, of ambition, and maybe they just have a visceral reaction against drugs. But I think it speaks to another underlying issue, something that is much harder to understand and much less tangible. Drugs are a very tangible thing. Money is a very tangible thing. Houses are very tangible things. Food on the kitchen table, a kitchen table in general, all these things are very tangible proxies. But what do they all speak to? They speak to the underlying desperation that Americans are feeling. And that's not to say that it's warranted or unwarranted. I'm not trying to take a side on that. We live in a country of great opportunities, and if you go to other countries, you'll understand how lucky we have it. Now, is the argument really should be, hey guys, whoa, hey, we have it great compared to these guys. Will that work on an emotional level? Will that work on a political level? No. But maybe there needs to be a way to make it more palatable, make people appreciate and understand what we really do have here. But we go into these midterms, these upcoming ones, with pretty obvious political points set. I think that these gubernatorial elections are more to set the tone for the activists and the people working in the party. If Democrats come away from both of these gubernatorial elections, the New Jersey one and the one here in Virginia, and they see that their Democratic Party has won. They see that their person has won. They believe that their issues have won, which I think both parties would be mistaken to say that their issues win, because politicians are only ever a true proxy for positions, and also because of the fact that there are people around them, they have to make compromises, but also they're a proxy for the people's positions on certain issues. But besides that, we'll have motivation and power and energy moving out of these elections into the midterms. And I think that's even more important than the actual political, what's the word I'm looking for? Future gazing, the crystal balling that they're trying to do, looking into the future, trying to understand what the Americans are going to want. I can tell you now, Americans are going to want a lot of things, but they're going to want cheaper food. They're going to want more nutritious food for their kids. They're going to want good education for their kids, whether that comes through a private school program that you get subsidies for, whether it comes through public schools program, whether it comes through encouraging homeschooling programs and providing incentives for them to do so. Basically saying, hey, colleges, you should actually take the accreditation of these different homeschool places. There's thousands upon thousands of these that hit the kitchen table, that hit the heart of American families, that hit the heart of Americans in general. And that's what they're always going to care about. That's just my opinion. Now, I do believe there's a large sector of them that also simply says, I want to live my life without the government getting involved. The ones that are well off enough to not actually need anything from the government, to not see any holes in the system that aren't doing them well. Their argument is probably going to lean more on the side of, hey, government, why are you trying to interfere with my life? But maybe I'm wrong. I've always presumed this, and I leave room to be wrong. Leave your comments down there in the comment section if you think I am wrong, because I would be really interested to hear what you have to say. But with that, hey, if you want to read today's article, we linked in the description below the like and subscribe button. Also down there, you can find the podcast on Spotify, Pocket Cast, Podvine, as well as the Twitter handle at Your Daily Flip, where I post the link to these episodes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the 6 and 6 podcast. I post those links on Tuesday and Thursday. So with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe. Don't die.